Welcome to the first episode of While I'm Driving, which is also kind of an offshoot of While I'm Making Coffee, because I've actually got the coffee with me. But as you can see, this is a slightly new adventure because we're driving as opposed to sitting around in the house. Now, one of the things that we did on the channel a few years ago was vlogging, right? But there was like a reason why I didn't want to get into vlogging. I felt like the only reason you would want to watch it was to just make sure you knew what happened next, even if the content wasn't very interesting. And I was worried that I would just get into that rut where just making stuff that's not very interesting, but people keep showing up because they want to see what happens next. So I didn't do a lot of vlogging, but in the end, I ended up streaming. And when you think about it, live streaming it's the same. It's just vlogging, but you don't go anywhere unless you do live streaming and you actually go places. So it's like, in the end, I ended up doing the same thing. So, since it turns out that I'm not going to be leaving Japan anytime soon, and it came up that I needed to buy a car, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna buy this one, and I'm gonna have a bit of fun. So, that is the birth of this series. Welcome to While I'm Driving, which is hopefully going to be partly while I'm drinking coffee, because I'm going to be bringing this along with me. Oh, I've got to be so careful. Now that half the car is open, I'm so worried I'm going to like drop something out of the car. Anyway, check out this road. It's so nice. So I wanted to start with the topic, why did I buy a car? Now, I've lived in Japan for quite some time now, but I've never actually owned my own car. In fact, I've never actually bought my own car. I've always rented cars or driven other people's cars. Or, for example, like when I was just graduated, my first car was something that my parents bought for me, so I'm quite privileged in that regard. So this was actually, this having lived in Japan for like a really long time now, finally actually buying my own car, and I kept avoiding it, basically. I was like, that's a lot of money, and if I can take public transport, if I can drive somebody else's car, I can spend that money on computers or camera gear and stuff that I need for the channel, right? But now, now that my life, I have more, it's more involved than it was before. There are things that I have to do that involve driving a car. I have to run errands, I have to pick people up and go places. And I thought, well, if we're gonna buy a second car, and it's going to be the one that I drive the most, it ought to be something that is 90% something that's actually kind of useful to me, and 10 or 15% of those times when I have to go and run errands, right, going to be useful for that as well. And so if predominantly I'm just using the car to have fun, it doesn't need to be a super sensible car, does it? Well, here we are. Now we have a really brilliant, quite reasonable, but when you think about it, not that sensible car. And the roof comes off. I would have preferred to have taken this video when it was warmer, and it was warmer earlier today, but I didn't have the camera set up. I've had this camera set up here, but I didn't have that camera set up there. So I showed up on today on this road. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for a drive, but I didn't have the cameras set up. I didn't actually have that suction cup adapter that hooks the camera up over there. So I had to like buy that, and then it turns out like I'm recording my audio onto this little field recorder with this little mic. And then I turned it on, and it was like, yeah, by the way, your SD card doesn't work. And I was like, what? I don't even know why the SD card doesn't work. Some SD cards, you just collect stuff in your man drawer of things that don't work anymore, but you don't want to throw them away because you're like, well, maybe I'll find a use for it, or maybe I can dispose of it properly when I go to one of those battery places where you have certain shops. You're not supposed to throw batteries in the rubbish. You're supposed to dispose of them properly, right? So you just have everything in your man drawer for the day that you finally get rid of it properly or do something with it properly. Well, finally got the cameras set up, and here we are driving, and it's, to be honest, a little bit cold, which is why I'm wearing the long sleeve. I would have preferred to have shown you what this road is like when the sun is shining and it's much nicer. And I took a little bit of footage earlier when it was still a little bit sunnier, but I think it still looks nice. It's just kind of cold now. So that's the story. I've always rented cars and never really wanted to buy one because I thought I could use the money for other things, save the money for other things. But here we are, finally had a reason. It's like, you need to have a car for certain things in life. It's like, well, if I'm gonna buy a car, it's gonna be a fun one. I probably would have got away with never buying a car if it hadn't actually come up in conversation that you need to have one to pick people up and run errands and stuff. But when that topic of conversation came up, I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see what cars are available. So I started looking up cars that had, 5 seats, cars that had 7 seats, cars that were huge off-roaders, cars that were kind of speedy and racy. And then, obviously, when you spend enough time on YouTube, you end up in this little vortex of videos that are like, hey, you should buy a convertible. And now I've ended up with one. And that's basically the story of how I've got this car. But the other thing is that not just watching YouTube videos, but also getting into Assetto Corsa. So I was playing a lot of racing games on the channel. Not a lot of racing games, but I just started playing racing games on the channel. I was really interested in getting a driving wheel and learning how to use the clutch and all that, the handbrake to do drifting and all that. And I don't really want to do drifting in real life. I actually said when I bought that wheel, it's like, it's going to be fun to do drifting in a game because it's not something I ever really want to do in real life. I enjoy having fun on the road, and to be honest, I'm going to be eating my words. I'm sure that by this time next year, I'll have probably modded this car so that I can go onto track days and go drifting and all that. But for now, all I really wanted was a car that's fun to drive on normal roads without drifting. And definitely getting into Assetto Corsa and the driving wheel, that was a big part of why I ended up getting a sporty-ish car. This isn't the sportiest car you can get, and to be honest, it's also not really a very fast car, but it is a heck of a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of While I'm Driving, and I'm going to be drinking coffee at the same time. If you enjoyed what you saw, do of course like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I just can't wait. There's so much I want to do with this series, and I know that it's not very, it's like, what's the word? I was going to say comprehensive. I'm sure that a lot of what I said today doesn't make any sense because I've never done it before, driving and talking at the same time. But in the future, what I want to do is talk about all sorts of topics, gaming, driving, fighting games, Japan, traveling, and I'd love to go all sorts of places and explore new places and take you with me in this car. And now that I've got my camera set up and my mic set up, I think it should be quite easy in the future. Just go bang, 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 turn it all on. just today, I was just like, I actually got started ready to shoot this video like 4 hours ago, and then like 4 hours later, I was like, yeah, still not ready. Everything's not quite in place. Oh, I need to be in third gear. Subscribe to the channel, comment, like. See you all in the next one.